Okay, guys. So welcome back. Good evening to everyone. And okay, so I think in our last lesson in yesterday's session, I think I'm talking about fundamentals of Python. Okay, so what are the basic things inside the Pythons? Okay, so actually this whole class is about in 7 days we are trying to cover basically we are trying to focus on the advanced part of the Python, not on the basic things. Okay, and I'm assuming that yes, you all are basically from some coding background, so you know the basic basically a coding. You have some basic coding skills. Okay, and yes, but for basically go on to the advanced part also. Before starting the libraries, we need to basically do some basic stuff. So okay, so we need to basically need to refresh our memory. We need to refresh our basically a syntax. Okay, so what are the basically a syntax and what are the different kinds of things which are available inside of Python? Okay, so that is why I told you that in the first 2 days I'm going to discuss about the fundamentals. Okay, so what all are the essential things? Okay, and that maybe and that part is maybe also include and maybe necessary and for making any kind of analysis. Okay, so that is why I am basically taking from a very beginning. So I am start from data types, data structures in Python, and then basically I am talking about a different kind of a data structures available inside a Python, a list, tuple, dictionary, and a sets. Okay, and then I'm talking about I talked about like a control statements for if, elif, and else statement, then a looping statement. Okay, so for loop, and then I told you that yes. So in today's session, I'm going to start with what I'm going to start with a while loop. Okay, and after completing the while loop, I think we are ready to go for functions. Okay, so what are the different kinds of function available inside of Python, and actually what actually functions is. Okay, and then some basically you can say miscellaneous concepts like a list comprehension and maybe you can say yes, a list comprehension and a dictionary comprehension also. Okay, so I think this much of bucket is basically this much of knowledge is necessary before starting before going into the depth of a data analysis. Okay, so I think we need at least this much of a knowledge. Okay, so I think in a day two I am going to start from a while loop. Okay, so I just make a comment while loop. Okay, so what happens inside a while loop? So inside a while loop, basically, what happens is, so a while loop is continue. A while loop is basically a continue until and unless until and unless the condition is not getting false. Okay, so in a while loop, so just like in a for loop, so you give some condition, and until and unless that condition is not false, the loop is going on and on. Okay, so suppose I think we can only understand the while loop with the help of an example. So suppose I take an example of maybe print. I ask you that print n natural numbers. Okay, so print n natural numbers by using a while loop. Okay, so in that place, what you need to do is, so you just define some numbers. Okay, so you want a 10 natural number, so maybe you can write d as 10, and then basically and then you take one iteration of I is equals to 1, and you need to make a summation. Okay, so you need to basically sum of all the numbers, all the natural numbers. Okay, so you want the sum of all the natural numbers. So for that purpose you need basically one variable in which you are trying to store your basically a summation values. Fine. Now, if I basically try to use a while loop, so while I means I is what I is basically 1, I is less than or equals to 10. Okay, so my loop is going on and on until and unless my condition is not false. Okay, so this condition is not false means if I write I is less than or equals to 2, it means what? when basically I becomes, okay, so after so many iteration, when at least at one point I becomes 11, okay, so 11 is not equal to 10, so at that point you are basically you come out of the loop, and then you come out of the loop, and after coming out of the loop, you are trying to print basically your values, your n natural numbers. What are the basically some of the n natural numbers? You are able to print that. Okay, so I just give a condition I is less than equal to 2. Now you need to basically create a logic. Okay, so what is the logic? So on the very first place, you are trying to do the summation. So s is basically a 0, so 0 and plus 1 means 0 plus I, sorry, not 1. And then on the second place, you are trying to basically increase the value of I. So I is equals to I plus 1. Okay, so I is equals to I plus 1 and S is equals to S plus I. Now, if you're trying to make this calculation maybe on a paper or maybe in a coding itself, okay, so just trying to with your brain, so you are able to find out the answer. And don't worry, I will basically show you that what is basically I at when my what is basically S when my I is 1, and what is and then when I is equal to 2, then what is basically S. Okay, so I will show you that thing, don't worry about that. Okay, but first of all, maybe if I try to print S. Okay, so S is what? So total summation of an n natural numbers is what? So sum of 10 natural numbers is what? Sum of 10 natural numbers is 55. I think you all know this answer. Now, if I try to show you basically hierarchy, okay, so how these things basically come. Okay, so you can print in this way, maybe I comma S. Okay, so in this way you are able to find out that how basically these values come. Okay, so maybe if I try to basically show you, so what happens is, so you are trying to see while I is equal less than 10, so less than equal to 10 means you are trying to check I is less than equal to D. Okay, so condition is completely true. Now you are trying to do S is equal to S plus I, so S is nothing but a 0 and I is nothing but a 1. Okay, so value of S is what? Value of S is 1, and value of I in this place is what? Value of I is nothing but 1 plus 1 is basically a 2. Okay, so 2 and 1. Now in the second time, when you again go on to this place, 2 is less than or equal to 10, so condition is true. Now this time, as value of basically S is what? 1, and value of I is what? 2. So 1 plus 2 is basically 3, and I becomes basically a 3 again. So 1 plus sorry, so I plus 1 means a 2 plus 1. Okay, so yes, 3 and 3. Now I think you are able to understand that 3 and 3 is 6, then 6 and basically 6 plus 4 is 10, then 10 plus 5 is 15, 15 plus 6 is 21, 20 plus 7 is 28, 28 plus 8 is 36, 36 plus 9 is 45, and 45 plus 10 is 55. Okay, so this is the hierarchy of this summation of this n natural numbers. Okay, guys, so this is all about a while loop. Okay, so I think in this way you can better understand the while loop. Fine. Now if I basically tell you maybe another kind of a statement. Okay, so I think in yesterday's session also I told you that there are basically three more statements which is available inside Python. Okay, so first is nothing but a break and continue and a pass statement. Okay, so that are nothing but a break, continue and pass statement. So suppose I try to basically run a for loop. So for x in maybe some list. Okay, so for x, sorry, maybe in some string. Okay, so for x in Shiva. Okay, so in this place I'm trying to basically tell you the basically a break statement. Okay, so for x in Shiva, and I want to basically print this whole thing one by one. Okay, so SHIVM. Okay, so for that purpose, what I can do, I just try to write print x, and yes, I'm able to see this. Now, if I basically use a break statement, okay, so I just give a condition. If my x is equals to what? Suppose if my x is equals to v. So in that place, use break statement. Okay, so what basically break do usually? So by using a break statement, you are basically you come out of the complete loop. Okay. So yes, you are you are trying to print X out of this loop, and you are able to print only SHI. Okay. So after SHI, you are not able to print anything because you use basically a break statement. Okay. So break statement is basically throw you out from the loop. Okay. So you just come out from this loop, and yes, at last you are able to see only SHI. Fine. So this is basically a fundamental of break statement. Now, if I basically choose maybe another statement, maybe a continue statement. Okay, so continue statement. If I try to basically use the same example, and I'm trying to basically tell you about a continuous statement. Okay, so again in this place, what happens is, so if you basically use a continuous statement, so what happens inside a continuous statement? So continuous statement is basically not trying to throw you out from a basically complete loop. It is just trying to basically, it is not trying to basically throw you out from the complete loop. It is just trying to skip that element. Okay, so skip this element v, and then try to and then ask you to continue your iteration. Okay, so you can continue your iteration. You just, and it just try to skip this element. Okay, so the element where you're trying to basically put the condition. Okay, so if x equals to v, so it tries to skip only this element, and then it tries to print all the elements after basically this v. Okay, so if I try to print this, yes, so SHI AM. Okay, so it only tries to skip this v element. Okay, so this is the purpose of basically this is the purpose of using a continuous statement. Now, if I talk about a pass statement, so what happens inside a pass statement? Okay, so again, suppose if you try to write for x in some range. Okay, and suppose if you don't want to give any kind of a condition, or if you don't want to print anything, or you don't want to basically print any kind of a statement, or you don't try to maybe write any kind of a condition. So for that purpose, suppose if you if you just want to leave it as it is for now, and maybe after some time you are trying to do maybe maybe trying to perform some kind of a basically a functionality, or maybe some kind of operation. Okay, so pass you can use usually anywhere. Okay, so maybe in a function and a class also you can use a pass. Okay, so suppose if you don't want to say anything about basically this for statement, and for loop, and then suppose if you're trying to just try to run this cell, so what happens is it will give you an error. Okay, so to remove this error, or to basically to save yourself from basically this kind of error, you just use what? You just use a pass state. Okay, so this is basically fundamental of, this is the purpose of basically the pass statement. Now there is one more statement. I actually basically told you about one more statement which is available inside basically a Python. So that is nothing but a for else statement. Okay, so one more statement is available which is called basically a for else statement. Okay, so now in for else statement, how basically you are, what is basically a purpose of using a for else statement, and what basically it tries to tell you. Okay, so what basically what is the definition of this for else statement? Okay, so suppose I try to basically write a same program. Maybe suppose if I try to write the same program, okay, using a for else statement. Okay, and I try to show you the definition of for else statement. Fine. So that is completely fine. I don't want basically any x and any v. I don't want to basically show any kind of a condition, because okay, I just want to print this thing. That is completely fine. Now, if I use a else statement in this place, okay, so print. Okay, so what else statement is trying to do is, so this is maybe the definition. okay, which I am trying to write in double quotes. Okay, so yes, I am able to iterate. Okay, so I am able to iterate means what? So for in a for else statement, so else statement is only basically you are only able to print the else statement, or you can only see the statement of a else statement when is you are able to iterate through this basically a Shivam completely. Okay, so you know that using a for loop, you are trying to iterate over this basically a string. Okay, so one by one, a value of x is changes. Okay, so for the very first time, x is maybe on s, then h, then I, then v, then a, then m. Okay, so if it is able to iterate it completely, and here it can easily iterate over a basically complete Shivam, then only your else statement is printed. Okay, if it is not basically able to iterate, maybe if it is basically break, or okay, so maybe if you use a break statement, or maybe if somewhere it is trying to basically throw you out, so at that point of a time it is not able to iterate completely. Okay, so it is not able to basically reach to this position. So at that point of a time, your else statement cannot be printed. Okay, so this is the basically a meaning of for else statement. Now if I basically show you the example, okay, so how you can basically relate with this example. So suppose I can if I write in this way, so if x is equals to maybe a v, and then suppose maybe I use a break statement. Okay, so now in this case your else statement is not going to be break. Yes. Okay, because you use a basically a break statement, and by using a break statement, you are not able to complete the iteration. Okay, so you are not able to complete the iteration. So just because you are not able to complete that iteration, so your else statement. Okay, so whatever the statement you pass basically through your else through your else, it is not able to give you that particular statement. Fine. So this is the purpose of, or this is the definition of basically a for else statement. Okay, guys, and definitely if you want to try maybe some program, maybe some tricky one or maybe a easy one, so definitely you can go through my playlist, which is I think available in our YouTube channel. Okay, now if I talk about basically a next topic. Uh, Okay, so if I talk about maybe a next topic, so that is nothing but a functions. Okay, so what is basically a function? So function is nothing but when you try to basically make your code a modular one, because I think till this time we are okay. So I think that you already know that Python supports all kind of programming. Okay, so it supports okay, so if you write in a maybe in a script in a scripting way. Okay, so Python supports that thing. Okay, so you can write a program in maybe a scripting way. Okay, so that is why many in many tutorial you can heard this thing that writing a program in Python is just like writing a story. Okay, so you just need to basically beautify your story. Okay, so you just need to you just try to see that whether you are able to beautify your story or not, whether you are basically you are able to represent your story in a much better way. Okay, so that is what we call basically a scripting. Okay, so we are trying to yes, we can basically we are trying to we are trying to program in a Python in a scripting way. Now we can also program in a Python in a function. So Python also allow a functional programming, and Python also allow you to do object oriented programming. Okay, so that is completely fine. Now what you mean of functions? Okay, so in a scripting way you are not able to. So suppose if you are trying to basically add two numbers. Okay, so if I took a very simple example, suppose someone asks you to add two numbers. Okay, so each and every time you are trying to basically make one basically try to do that basically plus operation. Okay, so you just took two variable a and b, and then gave some value, integer value inside a and b, and then perform basically again and again that summation operation, then you are able to basically add numbers. Okay, now if I suppose these are your function, like I think I talked about a range function. Okay, so I think you know about a range function. So so someone written a program, someone basically inside a range function in their backend, someone written a very beautiful program, so that by using a range function we are able to basically call numbers in some range. Okay, in between some range. Okay, so in a same way, so that is what we call a function. Okay, so that is what we call a function. That is basically a built-in function in a Python. Now if you try to basically build a predefined function. Okay, so sorry, user defined function. Okay, so what is my user defined function? So you just try to make one single function, maybe of addition. Maybe you just try to make a function where you are trying to basically add two variables, and each and every time whenever basically you need to add two variables, so you just need to call your function and then pass two variables, and then your function is able to add those two numbers. Okay, so yes, you can basically create this kind of a function, and this is also called a modular approach. Okay, so whenever in a company or in anywhere, whenever you are trying to basically do a programming, so you need to follow a modular approach. Okay, so there you can't basically follow a scripting way. You need to follow a modular way. You need to follow the modular approach. So function is a basically kind of modular way of programming. Okay, so how basically you can define a function and how you basically use that function kind of a thing in Python. So so for using a function, you just need to basically define a function. So maybe you can define in this way. So maybe def is a keyword for defining a function. Okay, so def func, and then after that, maybe if you're trying to print some kind of a statement. Okay, so print hello. Fine, so print hello, and then okay, so I think this is fine. So now if you try to basically call this function. Okay, so how you can call this function? So just by writing the function name. Okay, so just by writing the function name, you are able to call this function. Okay, so after calling, okay, so function is able to function is start working when you are trying to call the function. Okay, so after calling, basically okay, so when you take this name, so after calling it will go here, and then it is try to print a statement which is available inside this particular function. Okay, so this is basically a kind of a function. Now suppose if you try to do some implementation, or maybe so this is a default argument. Okay, so you are not passing any kind of argument inside it. Definitely you can pass maybe a argument inside this. Okay, so suppose if I try to pass maybe some argument. Okay, so hello, and maybe if I try to maybe say hello to someone. So for that purpose, what you can do is, so for that purpose you can try to write in this way. Okay, so plus, oh sorry, plus, and maybe a name. Okay, so if you're trying to take maybe someone name, so you can give basically a title. Okay, so title is what, so by using a title function, so title is a built-in function available inside a string. Okay, so by using a title, you are just trying to capitalize the first letter. Okay, so trying to capitalize the first letter in any word. Okay, so suppose you are trying to pass basically a value over here. So maybe a name is what, so maybe the name is nothing but a Python. So I'm trying to say hello Python. And now if I run this program, okay, so yes, you are able to print hello Python. Okay, so when you are trying to basically call this function, so it automatically basically take a name as Python. Okay, then it tries to print this whole thing. Okay, so hello, and then it tries to so in this place it tries the name is what, name is nothing but a Python, and you are just try to capitalize the first character. Okay, and then it will try to print basically hello Python. Fine. Now, if I basically took another example and try to show you something. Okay, so suppose if I took maybe another example, maybe addition of maybe two numbers. Okay, so if I try to write in this way, so Okay, then here I pass x and y. Fine. So I think you know the basically a concept that how you can basically add two numbers. Okay, so suppose if I try to write z is equals to x and then y. Okay, so z is equals to x and y, and then you are trying to basically return what you are trying to return z. Fine. Now I think this is fine. Now if I trying to basically print this thing, okay, if I try to call this function, so add. Okay, and one more thing. So I don't want to use return right now. I just try to go with the print statement. Okay, then by using a add I just try to call maybe this basically a function. I try to call this basically function add, and I just pass basically two values. Okay, so 7 and 9. Okay, so 8 and 9. Okay, so add basically I'm trying to basically add two numbers 8 and 9, and my output is what? So after adding 8 plus 9, I am getting what? I am getting a 17. Fine, so the answer is basically correct. Okay, so no doubt in that the answer is correct. But so this is what? This is a kind of integer. Okay, so 8 plus 9, so and my value is basically 17, so I assume that yes, so 17 is a kind of an integer. So maybe if I want to add anything, or maybe if I want to do any kind of a numerical operation with this 17, okay, because 17 is my integer. Okay, so if 17 is an integer, so I can basically perform any kind of a numerical operation along with an integer. I think there is no issue. Okay, so if I try to maybe try to multiply maybe some number with 17, or maybe if I try to add some number, maybe I try to subtract some number. So I think it will not give me any kind of a complaint. But if I try to write basically a 6, and then if I try to basically run this program, so it will give me an error. Okay, so what kind of error it is giving me? It tells me that unsupported operand type for multiple, that is none type and integer. Okay, so yes, I think in yesterday's session also I told you that you can't perform any kind of a numerical operation between two different kind of a data types. Okay, so if your data types are different, maybe if there is maybe a list and a tuple, or maybe a tuple and a dictionary, so you or maybe basically integer and a string, so you can't basically apply any kind of numerical operation, maybe any kind of operand, plus minus multiplication and division, any kind of mathematical operand in between two different kind of a data types. Okay, so here it is basically saying me that tell us that there is one type is none type, and one type is integer. Okay, so what is mean by a none type? Okay, so if you try to check what is basically a type of this print statement. Okay, so what, because I think x and y is definitely an integer. So if I tries to check basically the type of this print statement. Okay, so type of this print statement is nothing but a null type. Okay, and that is what it is basically trying to basically tell us. Okay, so the type of print is nothing but a null type. So definitely it is not able to give me basically any kind of a result. Okay, so for that purpose what I can do is, so if I want basically make this thing as an integer, and then I also want to basically get some result. So for that purpose, in place of a basically a print statement, I can use what? I can use a return statement. Okay, so I just try to write a return z, and then now if I try to basically do again I try to do this job. Okay, so now if I try to pass maybe 7 and then 9, so yes, 7 plus 9 is 16, and then if I try to basically perform any kind of an operation, okay, so yes, I'm able to perform. So 16 into 5 is what? So I think 16 into 5 is nothing but a 80. Okay, so I think till this point everyone is able to understand. Okay, so this is a simple function and a simpler example. I think everyone is able to understand till this point. Okay. Okay, so try to basically move on maybe different basically a point maybe of what are different kinds of functions. Okay, so different kinds of functions are nothing but there is one thing. So these are basically arguments. Okay, so x and y is nothing but an argument. Okay, so whatever the values you are trying to pass this basically at a time of function calling, so these are considered to be an argument. Okay, so if there is no argument available in this place, so you can say that your function is nothing. So there is, you can say that it follows a default argument. Okay, so it follows a what? It follows a default argument, just like our basically a first example. Okay, maybe yes. I think before this thing, I didn't write anything over here. Okay, so that is the default argument. Now, if I try to pass any kind of argument, so it will try to basically tell me that these are basically of different types. Okay, so if I talk about maybe two important types in a basically Python function, so that are nothing but a positional argument and a keyword argument. Okay, so positional arguments and a keyword argument. Okay, so what happens inside a positional argument? So you are trying to write like a def info, and then if you try to pass maybe a two variables. Okay, so name and age. And suppose if you are trying to basically print this thing, so print is what? A name. Okay, so you are trying to print the name, and then you are trying to print what? You are trying to print the age. Fine. So I think this is okay. Now, if I try to call this function and I just give my basically argument. Okay, so the name is what? Okay, so maybe the name is nothing but a Shiva, and then the age is 24. Okay, so yes, I'm able to basically see the result. Okay, so name is nothing but a Shivam, and the age is nothing but a 24. Okay, so so positional argument means what? So positional argument means nothing. So it just trying to basically take a position wise. Okay, so it just trying to basically, because I'm not specifying that Shivam is basically the age and 24 is basically the name. Okay, so it tries to take basically this argument position wise. Okay, so on the very first position there is a Shivam, so it takes Shivam as name, and in the second place there is an age, so it takes 24 as an age. Okay, so now if I try to basically okay, so this is what a positional argument. Now if I try to basically show you the keyword argument. Okay, so what is basically the keyword argument, and why basically we need basically a keyword argument. Okay, so suppose in a same place. Okay, so in a same place, because I didn't define any basically a name and age. So suppose if I try to write a 24 in this place. Okay, so if I try to write a 24 in this place, and then in a second place if I try to write a Shiva. Okay, so I already basically we already see that in a function it tries to take according to a positions. Okay, so according to a position, my name becomes what? My name becomes a 24, and my age become a Shiva. Okay, so that is not correct. Okay, I think you all are assuming that this is not correct. This is completely basically a wrong thing, because basically age nothing can be a Shivam, and a name nothing name can't be a 24. Okay, so this is not basic. I think this is not a correct answer. So in this place, you can use what? You can use a keyword argument. Okay, so you just define here. Okay, so the age is, okay, so whatever you are trying to see, that age is nothing but a 24, and name is nothing but what? Name is always a Shiva. Okay, now you are able to see the correct answer. Okay, so this is what we call a keyword argument. Fine, guys. Now, if I talk about maybe a next type of a function. Okay, so the next type of a function is nothing but a variable length argument. Okay, so there is one thing inside a function which is called basically a variable length argument. Okay, so now I am trying to see that basically what is a variable length argument. Okay, so what is basically a variable length argument? So variable length argument means what? So if you try, suppose if you want to create maybe if you want to basically add maybe two numbers or maybe a multiple numbers, but I think at one time you can only pass those numbers that according to this number of argument. Okay, so whatever the number of argument is present over here, you can pass only that. Basically, you can pass only that number of variable in this place. Okay, so suppose if I'm trying to pass maybe a more than basically more variable in comparison to this. Okay, so suppose in this place I just have basically name and age, but I want to pass maybe an address also, maybe a mobile number also. Okay, so in this way, okay, so in this way, if I try to pass maybe a more than more variable, okay, so if I try to pass maybe a more variable, so how I can pass maybe a more variable uh, in comparison to this? Okay, so for that purpose, you can use a variable length argument. Okay, so suppose if I'm trying to add maybe a numbers which is available inside my tuple. Okay, so inside my tuple, suppose I have a 4 to 5 numbers and I want to add all those numbers. Okay, so for that purpose, you can use a variable length argument. So this asterisk mark is basically defines the variable length argument. Okay, fine. Now, if I want to add maybe those numbers, okay, so I just try to maybe return C, and then suppose if I try to basically give that tuple. Okay, so first I try to give that tuple. So 7 plus 3 plus 8 plus 2 plus 1. So 7 3 is nothing but 10, then 8 is basically 18, then 2 20 and 21. Okay, so how I can basically add all these numbers? Because when I basically try to write add and b, so yes, it is able to take all these numbers. Okay, so suppose if you remove this, okay, so if you remove this, so it will give you an error, because and it will give you an error like it can take only one positional argument, but you are trying to pass a 5. Okay, so that is not correct. And but if when you basically use this asterisk mark, so it will not basically trying to complain. Fine. It tries to make a different complaint, but yes, it is not trying to make this complaint. Okay, so suppose if you remove this C also, and I think you know that if you can use a pass statement, okay, so it will not give any complaint. Now, how I can basically add all these numbers? So for adding these numbers, I can do one thing. I just took one basically a variable, and inside this variable, I just try to pass a 0. Okay, so for a summation, I just try to make one variable as 0, and then I can basically try to run a loop. Okay, so because b is what now the value of b is, so b now b becomes a tuple. Okay, so b is equals to inside a parenthesis you have these values. Okay, so b is equal to 73821. Okay, so this so b becomes a tuple now. And if I try, if I so I think with the help of for loop I can easily add all those numbers which is present inside a tuple. Okay, so for I in what for, so for I in b, because my b is nothing but a tuple. Okay, so for I in b, s is equals to s plus and I. Okay, because one by one the value of I it changes, so s is equals to s plus I. Now in this place I can basically return s. Okay, so yes, the basically summation of all these value is nothing but a 21. So I am getting a correct answer. So yes, I am getting a 21 in this place. Fine, guys. So this is basically a different kinds of you can say a different kinds of functions which is available in which all are available. Okay. Now, if I talk about one more important concept inside maybe a function, so that is nothing but a scope of variable. Okay, so I can define a scope of variable in maybe a two way. Okay, so scope of variable is basically is nothing but there are basically two kinds of variables which is available inside this. So that is nothing but a global variable and a local variable. Okay, so there is a very minor difference between a local and a global variable, and yes, you can easily find out that what is a local variable and what is a global variable. So you can basically access your global variable anywhere. Okay, so and you can define maybe you can access your global variable anywhere, maybe inside the function and outside the function as well. Okay, so you can access your global variable anywhere. You can access your global variable inside the function, and you can access your global variable outside the function. But in case of a local variable, you can't do this. Okay, so in case of a global in case of a local variable, you can't do this. Okay, so in case of a local variable, you can't access a local variable outside the function. Okay, so suppose if I try to maybe define a one variable, so a equals to 10. Okay, so a is equals to 10. So maybe this is my global variable, and I just try to basically define a function. So def of test. Now if suppose I take a as 15 and b is equals to basically 30, fine. Now if I try to basically print a, so inside a function there is something. Okay, and suppose if I try to call my function, so my function name is nothing but a test, and if I try to basically print, okay, so outside the function. Okay, so I think you are able to see that yes. So this is my local variable. A and B is my local variable, which is available inside my basically a function. So I think yes. On the very first place, I am able to print basically a 15, and on the second place, I am able to print basically a 10. Now, if I try to write, so this is my global variable. Okay, so this is my global variable. Fine. Now I try to define maybe one more variable over here. Okay, so maybe a 40. Fine. Now if I try to basically remove this a. Okay, so suppose if I try to remove this a, and yes, if I try to basically remove this a, that is completely fine. And maybe if I try to run this program, okay, so yes, I'm able to basically print 10 in this place, fine, no worries. Okay, now if I try to basically, sorry, remove this. Okay, so if I try to basically print basically a b, because so b is my local variable. So suppose, and if I try to basically print b in this place, okay, outside the function. Okay, so suppose outside the function, if I try to basically print b, so it gives me an error. Okay, so it gives me an what is gives me an error. Okay, okay, I think it takes b as 40 already. Okay, so I need to stop. Okay, just define another thing, another variable. Don't worry. Okay, so it gives me an error that name C is not defined. Although you define basically a C, but C is inside a function. Okay, so C is what? C is your local variable. So you can't basically access C outside the function. Okay, although you can access basically your global variable inside a function. Okay, so nobody is basically stops you to basically call your to access your local global variable inside a function. So suppose my global variable is what? My global variable is nothing but a 10. Okay, so suppose if I want to access this 10 inside a function. Okay, so yes, I am able to basically access this. Okay, so in function 10, out function 10. Okay, so if you are having maybe a confusion, so you can remove this out function, then also you are able to access. Okay, so you are able to access this 10. Okay, because inside a function a is 15. Okay, but yes, you are able to access this global variable. Okay, so I think you guys are able to understand the difference. Okay, so global variable, you can access a global variable inside the function and outside the function as well, but you can't access a local variable inside outside the function. Okay, so you can access a local variable only inside the function, not outside function. Okay, guys, so I think this is it, and this is basically this is all about maybe a simple function. So in this way you can understand a function, that how you can basically create a simple function, and how you can and definitely at one point I think in your EDS session I basically request I can basically ask you to create a function, and then inside your function define some kind of a library, some kind of a basically a plotting library, and then make some kind of a visualization. Okay, so we can do this kind of a job with the help of function, and definitely function is important. Function is a very important concept inside of Python. Okay, so before basically moving on to the next topic, okay, so before moving on to the next topic, I think we can cover we can basically trying to do maybe at least one single example with the help of function. Okay, so in that way we can I think our knowledge is becomes maybe we can try to basically enhance our knowledge. So we can try to apply our logic, because I think that every one of you can create maybe any kind of a mathematical logic. Okay, so that is not a big task to you. So suppose if I try to ask you a question, okay, so just create a function, just create a function maybe of just create a function, just create a one function, and then try to check whether and try to pass maybe some numbers in some range. Okay, so trying to pass maybe, some number in some range. Okay, and then trying to check whether that number is prime number or not. Okay, so I just ask you to create a basically a Python program to check whether the that whether a given number is prime or not. Okay, so how you can basically make this kind of a function. Okay, so how you can basically make this kind of function, whether you can check whether the number you are trying to pass through a particular loop is basically prime or not. Okay, so just okay, so let's try to basically do this kind of a thing. Okay, so prime or not. So for that thing, suppose if I create a function and I just give a name is prime. Okay, so I'm trying to check whether the number which I'm trying to pass is basically a prime or not. Okay, so if anyone is interested, so yes, you can give your logic in a comment section, comment box. Okay, so suppose if I try to pass a number, so in this place, yes, I can use basically and so what is a prime number? Okay, so if I ask you the definition, okay, so guys just define me the prime number. Okay, so just maybe yes, you can definitely give me the definition of a prime number. So I think everyone knows from their childhood that prime number is basically the one which is okay, so which is divisible by itself and which is divisible by 1. Okay, so the number which can be divisible by 1 and which can be divisible by itself only, that number is basically a prime number. Okay, so and I think prime number starts from a range of 2. Okay, so our first prime number is nothing but a 2. So if I give basically a range, so for I in range 2 to n. Okay, now if I give a condition, okay, so if any number, okay, so suppose if I pass maybe a number maybe a 14. Okay, so 14 is not a prime number. Definitely 14 is not a prime number. So 14 is divisible by 2, 14 is divisible by 7. Okay, so 14 is not a prime number. Okay, so suppose if I pass a 14 over here, so what I can basically check. Okay, so I can check this thing. So suppose if 14 is divisible by any number in between 2 to n. Okay, so in between 2 to 14 means if I take a range of 2 to 14, so I think I'm able to iterate till 13. Okay, so if 14 is divisible by any number between 2 to 14, so it means what? It means it is not a prime number. Okay, so I just try to divide 14 by a 2, then I try to divide 14 by 3, then I try to divide 14 by 4, then I try to divide 14 by 5, then I try to divide 14 by 6 and 7 and on. And basically in this way. So if 14 is basically divided, so if I'm able to divide 14 by any number in between 2 to 14, so it means what? It means that 14 is not a prime number. Okay, so I can write basically this condition. So if my basically n means what? N means a number which I am taken, so a 14. If my n is divisible by I, okay, so any number in between 2 to 14, if it is okay, so if it is divisible, it means what? So n modulus I is equals to 0. So it means what? It means this is not a prime number. Okay, so I can simply write this is not a prime number. Okay, so I think a simplest thing, this is a simplest definition. And else, suppose if this condition is false, if is so if I'm not able to basically divide any of the numbers, so maybe if I take n as 11, okay, so in between 2 to 11, if I'm not able, so if 11 is not able, if 11 is not divisible by any number between 2 to 11, okay, so in that case, I can say that this number, this is a prime number. Okay, so this is what, this is a prime number. Okay, so fine guys. Now if I try to pass maybe any number, okay, so maybe any number, maybe a 14. Okay, so it tries to tell me this is not a prime number, then this is a prime number, then this is not a prime number, and again then this is a prime number. Okay, so this I think it is able to so it is basically able to print the statement at every I. Okay, so at every I it is trying to print the statement. So on the very first time I is equal to 2, so at that point it is trying to tell me this is not a prime number. Then if I equals to 3, then it is, yes, it is not able to divide. So 14 is not able to 14 is not divisible by 3. So it will tell me that this is a prime number. Okay, so how I can basically break this repetition. Okay, so if I want to break this thing, so for that purpose, I think now you already know that you can use what, you can use a break statement. Okay, so whenever I realize that yes, this is not a prime number, so I can use a break statement. And yes, by using a break statement, yes, I'm able to basically I'm able to basically print a simple statement that this is not a prime number. And suppose if I think I need to do a same thing with basically with else statement also, because it is trying to repeat again and again and again. Okay, and so you can do maybe two things. Okay, so you can do two things. Okay, so what basically steps? So maybe you can use a break statement. So with the help of break statement also, you are able to basically stop that repetition. And one more thing, I think if you remember, you can use a for else statement. Okay, so this statement is only able to print. So else statement is only able to print when you are able to complete the iteration. Okay, so how you are able to complete the iteration? So you are only able to complete the iteration when your number is not divisible by any number in between basically this range. Okay, so you can just do one thing. You can just you can make this else statement just below this for loop. Okay, so in this way this becomes a for else statement, and this statement is only going to be printed once. Okay, and you can remove this break statement, and this statement is only going to be printed once, and this statement is only going to be printed when you are able to iterate it completely. Okay, so maybe if I try to do this thing, and let me check whether this is working or not. Yes, this is fine. Okay, so guys, I think till now we are basically able to understand so many things. Okay, so I think I talked about while loop, I talked about basically a different kind of a statement, and then I talked about maybe a function. Okay, so if you guys have any kind of any issue or any kind of a question, so you can definitely ask. I just take 30 seconds of a break, and then we can go for a anonymous function. Okay, so there is something which is called an anonymous function. Okay guys, so if you have any query, so you can ask your query. Okay, guys. So I think nobody have any basically a question, so I can continue. Okay, so there is basically a function available inside a Python that is called a lambda function. You can call it as a lambda function or an anonymous function, or you can also basically call it as a inline function. Okay, so this is basically advanced function which is available inside a Python, and yes, with this by using this function, I think your life becomes easier. Okay, so lambda function, or maybe you can call it as an inline function, or you can also call it as a basically an anonymous function. Okay, so the reason why it is called so lambda is basically a kind of a syntax. Okay, so I think we use a lambda keyword. So in place of a def keyword, here we are trying to basically use a lambda keyword. And why it is called an inline function? Because we are trying to basically solve. I am able to solve my query. I am able to basically perform my function in just a single line. Okay, so in a single line, I'm able to basically complete my function. Okay, so whatever the operation I can think, okay, so what may be the possible operation, I can perform that basically that operation in a single line. Fine. So how I can basically use a lambda function, and how basically a lambda function is useful to us. Okay, so for that purpose, you can write in this way. So suppose I basically ask you a question. Okay, so suppose I just ask you that create a kind of a function, so that with the help of that function, I am able to do the square of any function. Okay, so I can find a square of any number. Okay, so I can find out the square of any number. So just create a kind of function through which I can basically get the square of any number. So for that purpose, you can basically use a lambda function, and with the help of a lambda function, you can basically compute your program in just a single line. Okay, I think you can also create basically this kind of function by using basically a def keyword, and in that place you just need to return x cross x. Okay, that is also fine. Okay, or you can also store your value in maybe a some variable and then try to return that basically a variable. Okay, so all the things are basically completely, all this permutation, all these things are completely fine. Now, if I basically trying to do that thing with the help of a lambda function. So in a lambda function, so what is the syntax? So in syntax wise, so you can write a lambda function in this way. So lambda of x, and then just use a colon, and then trying to basically do the square. Okay, so x and then colon and then square of a number. Okay, so this is a simpler step. Okay, so in this place you just need to define a keyword. Okay, so you need to define a keyword. Okay, keyword is nothing but a number. Okay, so on which number you are trying to basically perform an operation. Okay, so this is basically your basically element, that this is your number, and then you are trying to perform an operation. Fine. Now if I basically do this, so in this place I can I just need to pass that value, I just need to pass that number. So that number of which you are trying to find out you are trying to find out the square. Okay, so suppose if I pass 6. Okay, so square of 6 is nothing but a 36. You can basically do any kind of maybe summation, addition, multiplication operation also. You need not to basically worry. So is this valid for just a single character? No, it is not basically valid for just a single character. You can basically perform a addition operation also, or maybe a multiplication, or maybe a division also. Okay, so in this way you can basically do this job. Now you need to pass I think you already know that you need to pass maybe two variables. So 8 minus 3 is nothing but a 5. Okay, so this is a simple basically a simple lambda function. Now there is three more function. There is I can say a three more function which is associated with this same lambda function, and with those function I am able to get basically again I am able to complete my program in just a single line. Okay, so in a single line I am able to basically able to complete my program by using that functions. Okay, so suppose in this place I am trying to use maybe a map function. Okay, so something is called a map function. So just okay, so as the name suggests, it is trying to basically map some kind of operation on maybe some container. Okay, so some container means what? So suppose maybe if you have a list. Okay, so suppose if you have a list, and inside this list you have maybe a different kinds of element. Okay, so you have different elements, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Fine. Now someone asked you to create a function so that I'm able to find out basically square of each and every element which is present inside this list, and just I try to basically put that element in a separate list. Okay, so in my new list, okay, so in my new list I want to put all these element. Okay, so a square of all this element. Okay, so means in a new element maybe basically a name of the new list is maybe n. Okay, so n is equals to what? So if I try to print n, so I get basically a list in which I am having a 9, then 16, then 25, and so on. Okay, so you can basically do this kind of a job. So for that purpose you need to use basically a map and lambda function. So just apply a map and then use a lambda, and then inside a lambda I think you know that how you can basically define your operation. So x, and then if you trying to basically if you try to find out the square. Okay, so x cross x. Okay, so you can find in this way also, and you can find a square in this way also. Okay, and then in this place you only need to give basically a container. Okay, so on which container you are trying to perform this lambda operation, this map operation. Okay, so you need to define that, you need to take a name of that container. Fine. So in this way and but if you want so it will give you basically a address of basically a map function. So yes, you are able to do this, but where you want to store this variable. Okay, so where you want to store these values. Okay, so I want to store this value inside maybe a some list. Okay, so just put all these values inside a list, and now yes, all these values are basically come inside one list. Maybe if you want to put this thing in maybe another variable, so yes, you are able to do this. Fine. So this is basically a purpose of a math function. Okay, so by using a math function you can do this kind of a job. Fine. So this is completely fine. So I think all of you guys are able to understand the meaning of a map function, and definitely I think you all are able to understand the basically uh, 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 why basically a map function is useful to us. Okay, and you can do any kind of a mapping. Okay, so you can basically perform any kind of a mapping, and if you just try to do all this job in just a single line, so you can do all this job in a single line. Okay, so you can basically put this list in this place also. Nobody is going to ask you the question. Okay, so why you put all this list in this place also. Okay, so you can find yes, this that is definitely not necessary that every time you can only use a list. Okay, so you can basically pass the tuple. Okay, so you can pass a tuple any kind of a container. Okay, so you can pass basically a string. Okay, so yes, there is no restriction that you can only pass the basically a list. Okay, you can pass a string, you can pass a tuple, anything, any data type. Okay, now if I basically if I try to basically explain you a different basically a function that is nothing but a filter function. Okay, so so as the name suggests, okay, so as the name suggests, what do you mean by a filter function? So suppose if I'm having the same list, or maybe if I change this list a little bit, if I change this list a little bit, maybe if I basically add some more numbers. Okay, Now, what I'm trying to do is, so suppose I'm trying to basically find out if I'm trying to maybe use by using a filter operation. So with the help of a filter operation, you are able to basically filter some values from your basically from your present container. Okay, so from your container, you are trying to basically filter some values. Okay, so suppose in this place, maybe someone asks you to create basically a function so that I'm able to filter only even numbers which is present inside this particular list. Okay, so from this list which is having all basically all kind of integer, even and odd integer, I just want basically what I just want a even integer. Okay, so how you can basically perform this kind of a job, how you can basically filter only a even integer. So for that purpose, again, suppose definitely you want to and you want to store all those even numbers inside some list. Okay, so for that purpose, what you can do is, so maybe in this time I just took a tuple. Okay, so that you guys yeah, you guys can understand. Yes, you can use any kind of a data type. Okay, so there is no restriction. Fine. Now, if I try to basically, and yes, you can store this thing inside a tuple also, or you can store this thing inside a list also. So for storing this thing inside a tuple, you can basically do this job. Okay, so you are trying to filter using a filter function, and then just use a lambda along with this, and then inside a lambda just perform this operation. So x and then x modulus 2 is equals to 0. Fine. And in the same way, just give that basically a container in which you are trying to perform this operation. Okay, so you are able to filter, you are able to get only a even integer out of this basically a tuple. Okay, so I think there is only a four even numbers: 4, 6, 8, and 34. Fine. So this is basically a story of a filter function. This is basically a definition of a filter function. Okay, guys. So I think yes, I think these are all basically a very simple operations, and I hope that you all are able to understand this basically a simple operations, or you can say a simple functions. Okay. Now, if I basically try to basically show you one more maybe operation, one more basically a function. So that is nothing but a reduce function. So try to basically get the definition of a reduce function. Okay, so what happens inside a reduce function? Okay, so what is basically a story, or if I basically can say that what is basically a definition of this reduce function? Okay, so in a reduce function, I think what you are trying to do is, so you are trying to basically in a what is the basically purpose of reduce function? So in a filter and a main function, you are trying to basically get basically a list, or maybe you are trying to get the tuple or maybe a string, and you are getting basically you again from one container you are again trying to create maybe another container. Okay, you are trying to create another container. So but in a reduce operation, what you are trying to do is, so suppose there is some list, or maybe there is some maybe there is some list, or maybe there is some tuple. So you are trying to perform what you are trying to reduce that basically a container, and then try to basically get just one value. Okay, so you are not trying so in your output you are not trying to get a basically complete container or a complete basically a data structure. You are trying to get a single value. Okay, so single value means what? So maybe you are trying to perform addition operation, a subtraction operation, and multiplication, any kind of operation, and then at last, after applying maybe addition operation, you are so you add all these numbers and then trying to get only a single number. Okay, so that is what the purpose of a reduce function. Okay, but for using a reduce function, you need to use a library. Okay, because reduce function is not directly available inside a core Python. Okay, so from func tools, import a function which is called a reduce function. Fine. Okay, not from tools. This is a from tools. Okay, Now, if I'm trying to basically use a reduce function, so reduce, and inside a reduce again use a function, and then do the basically a summation operation. So a comma x, and then just perform a addition operation a and x, and you can define your container here itself. Okay, so there is no restriction. I already told you that you can define your container here itself. So maybe if I try to basically add all these numbers, okay, and you know, do not need to define a list every time. You can define a tuple also. Okay. Okay, so in this place, so you can basically use a reduce function in this way, and after using a reduce function you get just a single value. Okay, so you get just a single value after using a reduce function. Okay, so yes, I am able to basically add all these numbers. Okay, so 3 plus 4 plus 5, so if you're trying to add all these numbers, so you will definitely get a 126. Okay, so this is a purpose of using a reduce function. Okay, guys, so I think till this point, everyone is able to understand that basically what is the meaning of maybe a lambda function, and what is the meaning of map, filter, and a reduce operation. Okay, so what is the purpose of all this thing? I think all of you are basically able to understand. Okay, guys, so fine. Now, if I'm basically trying to do maybe a different thing. Okay, so okay, so I think till this point everything is completed. Now, if I talk about a last topic of basically a today's session, so if I talk about a list comprehension, okay, so there is a two more miscellaneous basically a concept which is although a very necessary one. Okay, so two miscellaneous concept is definitely very important in a Python. Okay, so a list comprehension, and second one is nothing but a dictionary comprehension. Okay, so I think all those things are comes inside a list comprehension, and list comprehension is mostly asked basically in basically interview. Okay, so suppose in this place, if I'm trying to basically explain you the list comprehension, and again the list comprehension is also trying to basically makes your life easier, and your program size is basically reduced in a manner. Okay, so so your program size is basically is reduced in just in just a single line. Okay, so so suppose if I trying to basically perform a same operation, but definitely you need maybe a kind of a loop. Okay, so suppose like in a map function. Okay, so in a map function, what I'm trying to do, so in a map function I'm trying to basically square of all the elements. Okay, so if I'm trying to do a square of all the different elements present inside this particular list. Okay, so suppose I try to do the same thing. I try to basically do the same thing, but I'm not trying to basically apply a map function, because all these things are basically a kind of a function. Okay, so maybe one kind, maybe a different kind, but all these things are basically a function. Now, if I try to basically get this thing, or suppose if I trying to basically get this thing with by applying a for loop. Okay, so by suppose by applying a for loop, I am trying to basically get the list of get the list of squares of all the numbers available inside a particular list. Okay, so how I can basically do this job by using a for loop. Okay, and but by not applying any kind of a function. Okay, so for that thing, I can do one thing. So you can basically use a list comprehension. So inside a list comprehension, there is basically a very little concept, and you can say a syntax of a list comprehension. So on the very first place, you need to give a expression. Okay, expression, or you can say whatever the output you want. Okay, so you want basically a square of each number. Square of each number means what? X into x means whatever the value you are basically whatever the value you take, you just try to give a square of that number. Okay, so x for cross x means uh, x cross x. Okay, so basically you want basically square of maybe any number. Okay, so for x in okay, so x cross x for x in what? So for x in maybe any kind of container. Okay, so maybe a tuple, list, and dictionary, and maybe what? Okay, so 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so in this way you are able to. So this is the syntax. Okay, so on the very first place you need to give a basically a word expression, and then you apply your loop, and then you need to give your variable. Okay, so variable means what? So it's just you can say that this is just an alias name like I in a for loop. Okay, and then at last you need to give an iterable. Okay, so this is also called a container. This is also called an iterables. Okay, so now if I print S, yes, so I'm getting a square of all these numbers inside this list. Fine. Suppose if I try to basically perform another kind of list comprehension, and every time I don't need this, I can basically try to print in this way also. So suppose there is one string. Okay, so a string is also an iterable. A string is also an container data type. So I want basically, suppose there is some string which in which all the characters are basically in lowercase. Okay, so there is one string whose all the characters are in basically the lowercase. Okay, now if I try to basically convert them into the uppercase character. Okay, I want to basically convert I want to convert all the characters inside maybe a string into an uppercase. Okay, so how I can do this? So for that purpose, you just so on the very first place, you need basically an output or expression what you are trying to tell, or what are basically the operation you are trying to perform. So s dot upper, I want to basically do s dot upper for s in. Okay, then s is my variable definitely, because if I try to basically perform an operation with s, so s is nothing my variable in what? In hello world. Fine. So if I run this, so I'm getting basically this kind of a thing. Okay, fine. I need to do this. Okay, now if I run this, yes, so all the characters. Okay, so all the characters inside this string is now converted into what? Is now converted into the uppercase. Okay, so hello world. Fine guys, so this is basically a simple list comprehension. Now if I along with the for loop. Okay, so it is not necessary that every time you there is a program where you need only a for loop. Okay, so I think I already discussed you the program where I just put a condition also. Okay, so suppose there is some condition. Okay, so maybe there is some condition, or maybe you can simply consider a filter function. Okay, so suppose there is some program where we need a filter function. So how you can basically do that kind of a job with a list comprehension? Okay, so simply I just ask you to basically print all the numbers which is basically even number inside maybe in my iterables. Okay, so how I can basically print those things? So at last my output is what? So my expression is what? I just want that numbers which is dual byte, which is basically even number. I don't I need not to perform any kind of operation. So x cross x and s dot upper, I don't need to perform this kind of operation. I simply want that x. Okay, I simply want that x, or you can say I simply want that I. So for I and I for I, in some range or in some maybe a tuple. Maybe I can define a tuple. Okay. So I for I in this tuple, if I modulus 2 is equals to, okay, so I for I in this tuple, if I modulus 2 is equals to what is equals to 0. Okay, so the syntax is quite changed. Okay, so all the things are same, all the things are basically the same, only you need to add your condition in this place. Okay, so at last only you need to define your condition. Okay, so yes, I am able to print basically even number 2, 4, 6 and 8. Fine guys, so this is basically a simple list comprehension which is available inside Python, and with this you can basically do so many kind of a thing in a very in an easiest way, in an easiest possible way. Okay, so I think this is all. But yes, one more thing. If I maybe if I want to add else condition, okay. So suppose there is definitely there just one condition I am added, just as if condition. So suppose if I want to add maybe a else condition. So if you want to add maybe not only the else condition, maybe if you want to add maybe a multiple condition along with the if okay, so at that point of a time you need to so your syntax is quite changes. Okay, so your syntax is quite changes. So suppose in this place, so suppose in this place, I try to basically implement along with the if condition. Along with if condition means in a simpler word, I can say that I want to basically add a multiple condition. Okay, so in this place, your syntax your syntax quite changes. Okay, so how your syntax become basically quite changes. So just try to write in this way. So just create a list. So list comprehension is also always created inside basically a list. So suppose I want I want to create basically a program where I want to basically there is some suppose there is one string. Okay, so there is one string, maybe a Shivam. Okay, so maybe there is one string with name Shivam. Okay, so yeah, Shivam is fine. So I want to from that string. Okay, so from that string, so wherever there is basically there is vowel. Okay, so wherever there is basically a vowel, so I want to print basically a star. Okay, so in place of vowel I want to print a star, and rest of the thing I want to and the rest of the thing I don't want to basically do anything with the rest of the character. Okay, so in place of a vowel, so in a Shivam I think SHIVAM, so I think I and A is my vowel. So in place of I add basically A, so I want to print a star, and rest of the thing I don't want to basically I don't want to do anything with the rest of the characters. Okay, so how I can basically print this program? So I can write X. Okay, so I just want to print a same thing for, okay, first I can write in this way. So I want to print basically a star. So star if, so in this way I can write basically a if else condition. If X in, okay, I need to change this thing. Okay. So X, and if X in basically Shivam, so I can write it as it is, else print star. Okay, for X in A E I O U. Oh no, I need to run a loop over here. A E I O U. Okay, so in place of okay, I just need to maybe okay, I just print a wrong with just opposite condition. Okay, so in place of basically vowel, so vowel is basically written as it is, and rest of the things, and the rest of the things is basically become star. Okay, so rest of the characters become basically rest of the characters become star. Okay, because in a for loop, okay, so in a for loop I think I need to give a shivam because I need to run this for loop on a shivam itself. And so for that purpose, okay, so I can maybe I can write in this way, so else yeah, I think I'm writing it correctly. Okay, so x if star if x is basically this. Yeah, fine. Yeah, so that is completely fine. So so in this basically when I try to basically use if else together, so in that position your basically your syntax is quite changes. Okay, so in this place your if is come onto the first place, then else on the second, and then there at a for loop on the third place. Okay, so this is a simple list comprehension. Now, if I talk about a dictionary comprehension, okay, so dictionary comprehension is not very much different. Okay, so you are trying to write basically a same thing. You are trying to basically write a same thing, but inside a dictionary. Okay, so inside a curly braces. Okay, so all the things inside this you are trying to write in maybe what in a list. Okay, so in a list now inside a dictionary you are trying to do the same thing. Okay, so your all the conditions are same, you only need to pass this thing inside a curly braces. Okay, and you need to do one more thing because you all know that dictionary is always present in a form of a key and value pair. So you need to define this key. You need to basically define a one key. Now it is fine. Okay, so yes, you are able to see the square root of all the numbers. So in a form of a key value pairs. Okay, so this is a key and then this is a value, key and a value, key and a value, key and a value, and key and a value. Okay, so don't think that in a dictionary comprehension you need to perform maybe something very different. Okay, you need not to define basically perform something very different. You only need to define the same thing in a form of a dictionary. Okay, so instead to define in a form of a list, you need to define your basically operation, or you need to define your condition and basically a statement in a form of a dictionary. Okay, so fine, guys. I think this is all about today's session, and I think we are able to basically discuss and cover all the basically necessary topics, which is basically important before to start our libraries. Okay, so before we can start working on the libraries, so I think this much of basic knowledge or this much of basic Python knowledge is necessary. I think I can basically tell you one more function, maybe a GIF function, but that is completely fine. I can basically cover that function maybe in the next session. That is completely fine. So this is all about today's session, and I think everyone is basically able to understand. And guys, I think this is okay, so one more important announcement. So I think this is basically a certification course of 7 days. Okay, so we just send you the basically attendees form. Okay, so I think everyone is able to get that attendance form. So guys, just fill this attendance form so that it will be easier for us to basically give you the certificates. Okay, so just trying to basically fill this form so that it will be easier for us to give you the certificate. Okay, guys, and yes, at last, so anybody have any kind of a query or any kind of a question, or maybe if you are not able to understand at some point, so yes, you guys can ask your query. Yes, guys. Any query, any doubt or any questions from your side? You can basically write in a chat box, or you can definitely raise your hand and I can unmute you. Okay, 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 guys. Thank you. Someone asked me, could please send me WhatsApp group link? Okay, so this is just a 7-day class. I think you don't write your complete name. What is this? CSK. Okay, so we don't have any WhatsApp group, man. We don't create basically any WhatsApp group, because this is just a 7 days session. So we don't create any WhatsApp group. Okay, if you have any doubt or if you want to maybe ask anything, so you can ask that thing over here, or you can directly maybe I think every day you get a message from one number. Okay, so you can ask your query on that number. Okay, or this complete video is basically recorded, so this video is going to be uploaded on a YouTube channel, our YouTube channel also. Okay, so I think today I think you all get the recording also. Okay, so on that comment section also you can basically make a comment. Okay, if you have any kind of a query. Fine, guys. Yeah. Okay, guys, so thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.